Welcome to our last breakout session. How's everybody doing? Woo! Yeah, okay. Let me get in the right section. Well, we are here for a really exciting workshop. I might be a little biased because this is one of my coworkers, Sophie. But today, you guys are going to be learning about the Green Infrastructure Accelerator project. And specifically, you guys are here for a workshop about community engagement and advocacy for equitable development through that Green Infrastructure Accelerator project, presented by Sofia Bond, Analisa Akan, and Theresa Pinto.
Woohoo! Thank you, Erin. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Like Erin said, my name is Sofia Bond. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at Miami Waterkeeper. So I was checking the RSVPs for this, and it was mostly women, so shout out to the guys that showed up. Thank you for being here. Go Green Infrastructure. All right. Next slide. We can skip our intros really quick. Perfect. Oh, thank you. All right, so before we get started, I wanted to just set the scene on our Green Infrastructure Accelerator project. We just wrapped up on April 30th. It was a 3-year-long project, so it was amazing effort by multiple different stakeholders, including FIU, the peer group, Miami Waterkeeper. Local was also a huge part of this as well. And so the project in itself, it was a grant funded by the EPA, where we were able to integrate green infrastructure into Miami-Dade's built environment. And so this includes, going to communities and doing the outreach portion to understand what risks they're facing, whether that be flooding, excess heat, etc. And so those were the different aspects that we focused on and wanted to use as targets for what we wanted to come out of this. And so we'll get into that aspect next. So the first phase was just the outreach portion. And this was not only in person, but online as well. We have a community input tool that is still running. It's online. It's called the Yes NBS community input tool. And you can literally put pins on a map that show where you would like green infrastructure to be placed in your community. And so if you don't have an online tool, we also went out into the communities, from libraries to bingo nights to park events, you name it. And we had individuals do that exact thing, put pins on where they were experiencing flooding, heat, etc., unused spaces. And so throughout that whole process, we were able to engage with over 15 communities, over 216 locations were nominated, and over 30 community engagement events occurred during that 3-year period. We engaged with over 1,000 residents during that period. It was really amazing hearing from firsthand those communities and what they were facing. And so before I pass it over to Theresa, why are we talking about green infrastructure in the first place? So green infrastructure, it's not just nature, although that's the core component. The main idea behind green infrastructure is how can we use nature's values into our built environment. And so we have public health is a huge thing that comes from green infrastructure. We have the filtration process of reduction of pollution that comes from green infrastructure. Mental health is another really important aspect that goes overlooked. And so all of these different things are what we're trying to increase and have those benefits trickle down through implementation of green infrastructure. So now I'm going to pass it over to Theresa to talk a little bit more about the project.
Hi, everybody. Theresa Pinto. I am with the peer group. I'm also a lecturer at the University of Miami, but I was brought into this project as part of the peer group because we are a local nonprofit law firm that works on environmental issues through a community lawyering lens. And Miami Waterkeeper, when they were embarking on the GIAP, wanted to make sure that they were centering community, but also including and being inclusive of all communities in Miami-Dade County, right? So Miami-Dade is a huge region with a diverse number of communities. And so we were brought in to help them engage with communities in like Liberty City and Overtown and other marginalized communities to make sure that everyone was being included. And then we followed up with a project that Analisa is going to go into that really went around and engaged a couple of communities to kind of get their input and thoughts on green infrastructure and the designs that Miami Waterkeeper was putting together, but also to kind of gauge their concerns over things like green gentrification. So anybody in here not familiar with the term, or does anybody want to just say what gentrification is in their mind or what they know about gentrification? Yes, Justin. Gentrification in general? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what context? Right, exactly. So you're kind of honed in on what gentrification has become coupled with predominantly in the United States, especially where we have a history of marginalization and we have like Jim Crow communities and we have a history of segregation, right, and zoning that led to this kind of landscape that we have where there's, you know, desirable areas and non-desirable areas, and then, you know, as other areas become attractive to certain communities, it pushes out communities that have been there, right? So gentrification alone really is just the economic improvement of an area, right? But it's become so coupled with this forced displacement that happens, right? And this disruption of communities, and, you know, based on things like housing markets and economics. So green gentrification, like you guys have probably heard of climate gentrification, right? So green gentrification is another iteration of this process. Communities that are basically at the center of this process have been facing this process forever, right? We can even think about like Native Americans and how they were displaced from their lands, right? As that initial kind of idea behind, you know, process of this. So communities have been facing this for a long time. So they're aware of it. Communities in Miami coined the term climate gentrification because of our unique development history. Green gentrification does occur when parks and green spaces are improved in areas and there's not a focus on the community. People are displaced, and that happens. So we're also kind of focusing on this in our community engagement to make sure that communities, to get their feedback and their to get their knowledge of it and see how we could help them, right, prevent this, as we were also thinking about developing green infrastructure in their communities. Something that we used to kind of you know, initially do this and think about this is the DVMT, the Displacement, Vulnerability, and Mitigation Tool. Mouthful, so we just say DVMT. This was developed in the Environmental Justice Clinic at the University of Miami by Daniela Taktashian and Maddie Seals. And then when I was leading, helping to lead the Environmental Justice Clinic, we refined it and we turned it into a digital, it was like on paper, where you would go through and you would like put down information, check off some boxes, and then it would give you some of what are called mitigation strategies, but most of the mitigation strategies, honestly, are not really community-based. They're things like donate to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, build more affordable housing. So, right, a community that's being forcibly displaced, they're being told, well, build more affordable housing. So it's not it's not a perfect tool, but it gives you some data and gives you some ideas and gives you an idea of whether a development, and we tweaked it a little bit to deal with green infrastructure development in a park, whether that development will displace people, right? What the risk is to that community surrounding that development for their susceptibility to displacement. So we use this tool. We also, Analisa is going to talk about some of the in-person engagement that we did, talking to people, and some of the key takeaways and the information that we got from that activity. And I totally did not follow my notes, so I'm sure I missed things, but I'm just going to pass it on to Anna, and she can talk to you about the work that we did last summer with this.
Hi, thank you, Theresa. So on June 5th, 2025, we began our canvassing project. If anyone doesn't know what canvassing is, it's basically knocking on doors and getting the community's input for the redesigned parks. So our two goals were to assess the community's perception of the redesigned parks, and then we also wanted to look at the residents' perceptions of gentrification. So we began defining the community by looking at the community demographics. So we were split into two teams, my coworker Seth Melenda and I, and we had two other student researchers assigned to Ingram Park. So Larchmont Park is located in unincorporated Miami-Dade along Little River. It is frequently affected by flooding and extreme heat. There were 3 housing types, which included homeowners, renters, and public housing. The median household income was around $40,000 with a per capita income of $20,000. And this community was predominantly African American and Hispanic, and about 70 to 73% of the residents were aged between 20 and 40 years old. As for Ingram Park, it is located at the northeast end of the city of Opa-locka. The community as well experiences flooding and lack of amenities in the park. And Ingram Park serves the residents of Magnolia Gardens. There are 2 housing types, which include the renters and homeowners. Median household income around $31,000, predominantly African American and Hispanic. And this park had a long history of grant funding, and it's a really core of the community as it's used for aftercare programs for their youth. So we canvassed around 400 homes, so that looked like knocking, hey, do you have 5 minutes? And we had about a 28% response rate, which is similar to the national average. And we found some really key findings. So firstly, both communities loved the redesigned parks. They rated them a score of, at least for Larchmont Park, a score of 5 or higher out of 10 for the redesigned park. And then for Ingram, they were at a range of 7 to 10 out of a rating of 10. The residents were mostly concerned with flooding, both areas. And yeah, they were really looking forward to improvements addressing flooding in their area. And then thirdly, as for gentrification, a majority of the residents did not perceive gentrification happening in Larchmont Park, but I do want to say that the public housing residents were more concerned with displacement. And then as for Ingram Park, many of the long-time residents experienced frequent unsolicited calls to sell their homes, so that might be an indicator of early gentrification that might be happening in their community. And what was interesting with Ingram Park was there was a presence of house flippers and Airbnbs, and these people saw improving their park as an opportunity to increase their property value. So they had liked the idea of gentrification, and they had liked the redesigned park to hopefully increase their property values, which was interesting.
Right. Okay, last session of the day. We're not going to be presenting anymore. Now let's get our hands involved and dirty-ish. So right over here, I have an example of what we're going to be doing today. So just like we discussed with all of our outreach, you guys are also going to be acting the role of the resident. So we're going to split you guys into groups, but before we do that really quickly, I'm going to explain what the activity is. So each group is going to get a different site that we selected during our process. So you might get Larchmont Gardens, you might get Williams Park, you might get Charles Hadley Park. And what I want your group to do before you get into the designing of it all is to understand the community. Maybe you live in this area, but maybe not. And if you don't, you have a phone. So look up on your phone really quick, like who lives in this area? What's the makeup? And all of the different kinds of questions that you could possibly think of in the short amount of time that we have. And throughout that process, start to understand that community a little bit more. And then what you'll do is there's 3 prompting questions on your board. You can pay attention to them or you can ignore them. But basically what we want is for you all to redesign this park using green infrastructure elements. So you'll be handed to your group different
green infrastructure little sticky notes, and each will have a different kind of element. So let's say expanding tree canopy or planting native plants. And so you're going to talk with amongst your group to talk about what kind of green infrastructure element is best for that area with the knowledge that you have and why. And let's say you don't know what this green infrastructure thing is. We have some boards up here in the front with explanations of each kind of element. So, and you can also ask myself or Theresa or Walter is not here anymore, but he's the expert that made these renderings. So the goals of what your site what you want to reduce for what your site is facing is like stormwater. You want to reduce flooding. You want to reduce the heat and restore the habitats that once existed there. So that's the explanation of the activity. I kind of ran through that pretty quickly because of the short amount of time we have, but we have members from Peer and from Waterkeeper here as well if you have questions. Raise your hand if you're like helping out. Over here we have some Peer members, so if you have questions you can reach out to them. So please get in a group of about 4 to 5 people. Just stick around with where you are, with the people around you, and we'll come with a site. All right. Please.
And also, as part of the community input, we found out a couple of features that serve the community. So if you think of a feature that you want to include that is not a traditional GI feature, we're gonna pass out like notepads for you to draw them in. Okay.
Hello. All right, guys. I know. Okay, I love it. So let's wrap up really quickly. I want to hear what all of your groups thought of. So if you guys can think of a spokesperson for your group. I hear that this group back here has a spokesperson already. Right? So I'm going to hand you a mic really quickly in like 2 minutes or less. All right, guys, over here, really quickly. Okay. So what did you guys think of? What did you consider in like 2 minutes or less, if that's possible?
Hey guys, I'm Penelope. So we're working with, I forget the park name. Okay. Williams Park. This is near the Wynwood area. So we did consider the fact that there's not much green spaces within this neighborhood. We did notice that there's like a baseball field here, and through pictures on Google, we found that it's a multi-use space. So it's also used for like events. It's used as a recreational area for the community. So we considered leaving this as an open field. Just to ensure that community space remains there. Had some great ideas in the group. We were thinking of elevating this baseball field and doing like some channels here, potentially installing like some water-loving native trees, maybe some cypress trees, and have that water, once it rains, like funnel into those little dredges on the sides of those baseball fields. We also considered, we saw this parking lot. It's very likely to be non-porous, so maybe thinking up of a way to use porous surfaces there, maybe like pebbled parking lot instead down the line. Let me think. Oh, okay. So we have this little corridor here. It's a small strip between this parking lot and a few residential houses. We're thinking of using this corridor for native plants, maybe like a butterfly garden, having various like tree levels, maybe like medium-sized, ground cover, stuff like that. And then here in the corner, we did know that this is like a summer program, also like after-school care program area. So I know Fairchild does like portable hydroponic orchid sheds. So to further engage the community, we were thinking of potentially adding one of those sheds in one of these areas near the parking lot and have the kids learn more about orchids. Basketball courts. I'm not into sports, as you can tell. But for the basketball court, we were thinking of doing like a sloped surface, maybe having a rain garden at the edge of that basketball court. Don't know how that's going to play out, if referees are going to be like, no, you can't elevate the court. But hopefully maybe that slope can funnel that water, and it can be reused and to grow trees. So yeah, that's it. I think I'm over.
I love it. That was perfect. And also I want to highlight with this park specifically, they thought of similar things. So they really wanted to keep the ballpark as well because they use it all the time. And so we considered that in the final design as well. Perfect. Just to change it up, I'm going to pass it over to a group that had Larchmont Park. You guys. Okay. They really want to go.
Should I hold this up or? Alright, perfect. Hi everyone. So we had Larchmont Park. I'm Justin, by the way. Also, I'm running for State House. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but anyway. So yeah. Anyway, so we had Larchmont Park, which my sister and I actually grew up near, so we know a little bit about. And we also have Kevin Burns here, who knew a lot about it. So a few things about the park. It's a little bit of a weird shape. In terms of the main structures that are already there, there's a playground that apparently is in disrepair, basketball courts as well, and a pump station there. Otherwise, it's just strip of grass and, kind of needs some improvement. So the things that we talked about in kind of a disorganized order, though. First is there's this wall here along I-95. So to make that both, and it's supposed to be a sound barrier. So to make that more attractive, we thought we'd have both natural vegetation, like vines and things like that along it, that are also incorporated with like a mural. So give the community an opportunity to do some art, all that stuff. Second, within this space here, we wanted to put a combination of a community and butterfly garden. And our idea was keeping the left side of this more of like a passive, plant vegetation space, and then keeping the right side here more active. Next, we want to replace all the concrete with permeable surfaces, of course. Improve our playground. What am I missing here? Oh, and of course, there are no main amenities there. So bathrooms, water fountains, and like a buddy bench type thing over there. Then we also wanted to incorporate, for safety reasons, we wanted to have some lighting there. Overhead lighting to, keep the kids feeling safe. In an ideal world, park security. We might need to pay off Councilman Burns here for that. And then apparently there was a kid who fell into the little river and drowned. So we wanted to put up both improved fencing, signage, and just like general indication of, to families that come in about safety issues there. Last couple of things, we want to do trees around. There's that pump station there because it's kind of ugly. And a couple other ideas people had were bioswale. I actually don't fully understand what that is. So maybe one of the Waterkeeper people can explain. And kind of a funky idea, but putting oysters along the bay there as like filter feeders to, kind of help with the, debris and all that within the water there. And hopefully nobody tries to eat them. Anyway, did I get everything, guys? Okay, awesome. Thank you all.
All right, thank you. You guys thought of such amazing ideas. So let me pass it over here really quickly. What we'd like to share, what you considered, and what you thought of. If there's anything.
So I think we accidentally got the same board as the ones. Oh, okay. We were okay. Never mind. I'm confused.
I think ours has like the solutions display. It has some ideas more so than the other.
Okay. All right. Well, so we try to get creative then. So we noticed that there wasn't a lot of shade options for the bleachers. So we thought including that would help with some of the heat concerns, but also knowing that flooding is the biggest concern for this community, we considered if there's some kind of system that we can put in place through like incorporating native vegetation in the bioswales, as well as the porous asphalt, of having the floodwater be used for irrigation, potentially even like something to do with the pool filtration system since that's already in place. Additionally, we thought maybe the rain garden could either also incorporate some kind of community garden design that provides like very healthy plastic-free food options for the attendees of the park. And if not the rain garden itself, perhaps like this strip up here in the corner that is currently just like a grass patch that floods, that could be used as community garden. I really liked what the other group mentioned of having potentially like a pollinator or like butterfly garden there. And I think that was the main highlights. Oh, the other thing was potentially having like the playground flooring also be porous so that floodwater could filter down through that into the groundwater as well. And if there's anything I'm missing, please.
And to use to spray water to playing children to cool them down, if that's possible.
Actually, I think the county just opened a splash park. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that there's like a green infrastructure splash park up north. And I love the mention of non-plastic. I can tell Debris Free Oceans was on your team. Perfect. All right, let's go to the last group. We have 1 minute remaining. Anything you wanted to add that the last group with Larchmont Gardens did not include?
We were told that some of the community members were interested in planting like some fruit trees. So one of the things we thought about was we could have like a fruit tree orchard and maybe a community garden. Oh yeah, lots of notes here. And then maybe some sort of flood retention pond that then could be used to like water the garden. So that was something that we thought of. I think we implemented every green infrastructure solution, so similar to theirs, or theirs. Oh yes, we wanted a trail along the water because a lot of community members did want access, even though there had been an incident in the past, but maybe some sort of trail with benches. Another community member mentioned that they wanted a bench to bird on, or to watch birds while they sit there. To bird on. Yeah, he's gonna act like, okay. But so then we were like maybe some educational signage, like bird species that you see in the area, native plants that you see in the area. I think that was it, yeah. Pervious pavement, an eco playground.
This is amazing, guys. So I want to thank you all for coming to our workshop. Before I end really quickly, I wanted to let you guys know that we have a story map for each of these sites on our website with the final designs, all the considerations that we took into place, like the elevation and the heat and all of that as well. So feel free to look into that. We had 6 sites in total. We had Overtown, Little River, Larchmont Gardens, Homestead, Opelika, and I'm missing one, El Portal. And El Portal is the village hall that they have there. So it's like a unique kind of area that they wanted us to plan green infrastructure for. Please stay involved with Miami Waterkeeper. You can follow us on Instagram. You can go on our website and come to our events. I really want to thank you guys for being here today, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening. Hopefully you win something in the raffle, and I hope to see you guys again soon. Thank you.